All right. And we're back at the it's Mike, and we're back with the Joyful Life program. And today we have Trevor Timbeck joining us. And with that, Trevor, do you want to say a few words about who you are and what you do? And I don't know, whatever comes to mind.
Sure. Who I am that every act is an act of love, and that all things are true the way the first line of a joke is true. And I am that language is the house of being, and I am my word, and I am that everything matters, and who I am makes a difference. And I can go on and on for who I am. What I do is, how I phrase it is, I'm an artist, and being is my medium, and integrity is my art.
Oh, cool.
And I would refer to myself more as an ontologist, ontology being the study of being.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's what I do. Other people call me coach. But I like the liberty and freedom I have about being an ontologist and an artist and a poet.
Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah, that sounds so much what's the word I'm looking for? Broader than just, yeah, I'm a coach, man. Kudos. I might have to add that to my business cards, Trevor. So thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I'm still not exactly sure what the Joyful Life project is, but so far these video clips have been a ton of fun to do, and they're being compiled into YouTube, into Facebook, and hopefully people have the opportunity to see them and hear a little bit about what Trevor thinks. So that being said, are you ready for question one?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first question is simple. It's simple. What does living a joyful life mean to you?
So we talked briefly before coming live, and I said I was going to practice bottom lining.
Yes.
So my bottom line would be, don't push the river. It flows all by itself.
Don't push the river, it flows all by itself. So I think I know what you mean by that. But just in case, and I appreciate the bottom line, or, as I said, putting it in a nutshell, but can you expand on that a little bit more?
So that's my metaphor for many other fingers pointing to the same moon, right? Whether it's Taoism or all sorts of things. And my experience is that life flows all by itself. 13.8 billion years of life living, life flowing. And that when I don't resist whatever's flowing, which is what I call pushing the river, right? Or swimming up the stream or any of that, that, to your question, that life is joyful, right? The flow to me is joyful, being in the flow. And I recently spent some time in Hawaii, did a flow session with my coach, but also viscerally spent time on the waves and in the waves and under the waves, experiencing the flow of life. I learned and experienced a lot, like very much so, what happens when you push the river, right? Or, the difference between catching a wave and being caught by a wave.
Right. One keeps you on the water, one keeps you under the water.
And so I just love that metaphor. And there's actually a book by the similar name with a similar phrase of that. To me, it's just like a really short summary of bringing me back to this. I don't need to do anything.
So how would you, so for, and I know you've already explained this. If there's nothing to do, don't push the river. How do you, so we'll segue just for a split second here, but how do you, as a coach, how do you help people not push the river? Because it seems to me that that's what a lot of people try to do. Almost as if we've been taught that we should go out there and push the river. So how do you help people see the flip side of that?
So it's a great question. I don't start there because I don't suppose or presuppose that they shouldn't push the river.
Fair enough. Yeah. Good
So
point.
some people enjoy pushing the river, and I help them push the river if that's what they want to do.
Wow. Nice. Yeah. Good point.
And then sometimes people start to experience something that they don't phrase it this way, of that they're pushing the river. And what we uncover together, or what we discover, what they discover, is that experience and what's the difference. And I often do this with my hands, right? Of like, it's this feeling, it's not a feeling, there's an experience of that flow. And when we're out of the flow, right? When we're pushing the river.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of it, and why I said earlier, being an artist, where being is my medium and integrity is my art, what I've noticed is integrity brings me back into the flow. So by integrity, I mean being whole and complete, not morality and ethics, right? The wholeness, the completeness of my life, of who I'm being, of anything, my car, my house, my dishwasher. When it's out of integrity, it requires effort. But when things are in integrity, that's when there's no effort required, even though you might be doing a lot of work, right? It just feels effortless.
So how do you, how can you tell when you are, falling out of integrity, or on the precipice of falling out of integrity? What are some telltale signs of that?
The easiest one for me is something isn't working.
Right.
And I always say that, integrity, I used to say integrity exists in two states, in or out, but now I say it exists in two states, out and going out.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. And I want to hear more about that, but that'll take us into a longer segue. So we might have to finally have that call. Yeah, I really like that, as not an A or B. So what I hear in there is not an A or a B, but sort of a version of B. I don't know if I'm articulating that quite as succinctly as needed.
Yeah. So the other metaphor I use is that it's a mountain without a top.
Right.
Right. So there's no finish line. There's no, and usually that's the moment when you're like, I'm in integrity, that it starts going out all over the place and you don't notice. Or the metaphor I would use is like, you start cleaning your house. By the time you finish cleaning your house, it's already dirty, right? Like there's not houses clean, houses dirty, right? It's just different stages of really dirty. And it's like, there's something to me that helps relax into the flow, and that it's not something to strive for, or,
Right.
Being in integrity isn't good or right, or you should. That's all morality.
Right.
Integrity is what works. And when things are whole and complete, and for me, my guru, and this is the universe, I call it the great integrity, right? That is, for me, evolution, I say, isn't survival of the fittest, it's survival of what works.
Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah. What a neat little well, I mean, I don't mean a little distinction. It seems like a massive distinction. I like how you said that. That's really cool. So for time considerations, question 2.
Okay.
What advice would you give someone looking to live a more joyful or joyous life?
So how I hear that question is as an invitation to push the river.
Carry on.
So what comes up for me is what's presupposed by that question, right? What advice would you give someone?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Is like the presupposition of people need advice, or that there's something they should do, or whatever. Right. And so to me, that's what I love about this exploration. The more subtle I get, right? It's like I can even notice, feel, hear, see when I'm pushing the river, or even the invitation to push the river, which I got a whole list of advice I could give people. I used to call it, I was a map collector. I collect a lot of maps, right? Of like how to solve things, do whatever. So I'm very handy, and I can be at handing it out. And what I've noticed is it usually causes people to push the river.
I like how you're sticking to your guns there. And I know it's an odd, like even sort of when that question was formulated, it's like advice is not quite right. So maybe the question is, how would you support someone who wanted to live a more joyful or joyous life?
So it's still, it's not so much the word advice, but I play the game because I've definitely things come up for me. And the thing that comes up for me is I would invite them to lose their mind and come to their senses.
Lose their mind and come to their senses. Okay, so I have to ask, and we'll try to make this the last piece, but you got to say some words about that. I mean, I think I'm with you, but let's hear it.
So it's how do I bottom line this one? It's the most powerful distinction I experience in my life between what is and, you know, psychology, moralism, all the things that are not, was experiencing the power that previously my mind had over me. Like I was like, the mind is everything and anything, and my mind is my value. And so I tell people I had first 40 years of my life was getting my master's in righteousness, right, and a few PhDs. So I know how to be very righteous and, you know, be a slave to my mind. And the distinction that I'm now committed 40 years to getting my master's in workability, and I'm about 5 or 6 years in, so I still have 34 years to go, is seeing the freedom, the possibility, the flow that comes with when I lose my mind and come to my senses. Right. And there's distinctions and things that go into that, but that for me, the mind is the thing that tells me to push the river.
So just to clarify that, when you're talking about mind or the mind, what are you referring to?
So now we have like a whole other rabbit hole to get into. I don't, what I say is the mind doesn't exist.
Right.
I can't find the mind. And I find it interesting. People tell everyone that it's in your mind, change your attitude. And what I always tell my clients is, I don't know if you've noticed, but that's as useful as saying something's in your elbow. I don't know how to.
Yeah.
So mind potentially is just a figure of speech. And when I let go of that, to me, then that's where I said earlier of like, Heidegger's quote, language is the house of being, is in the languaging, I can get access to things. And in the languaging, things become available and stuff starts to get created and I can see. And that to me is like what we mostly call our mind is just a bunch of languaging, a conversation we were born into, our parents, our teachers, all these other things. And I used to take so much pride in my mind until I started to look that I couldn't find it, but also that it didn't occur to me it was my mind. It seemed more like society's mind, my parents' mind, my teacher's mind, my what's good and right and should rules and things like that. So that's to me which is the start of it. And the more I lose my mind and come to my senses, the more I find integrity and flow and wholeness and things working.